Today, we're going to look at a pretty wild story where the digital world basically reached out and slammed the brakes on the real one. It's a moment where a single file, just one picture, brought actual, heavy trains grinding to a halt. 32. That's the number of trains, we're talking passenger and freight, that were stopped in their tracks recently. And it wasn't because of a signal failure or something on the line. Nope, it was something way, way more modern.
And yeah, that's the big question here, isn't it? How on earth could one picture, just one photo floating around online, cause such a real and immediate problem for our critical infrastructure? So let's dive in and see exactly how this whole hoax played out. Okay, so first up, let's break down how this hoax even worked. For a fake image to cause real chaos, it needs the perfect setup. And in this case, that setup came from the ground literally shaking. So it all kicked off with a real-world event. A tremor was felt across parts of England. It wasn't huge or anything, but it was just enough to get people a little worried, to make them look around and wonder if everything was okay. And that little bit of public anxiety, well, it created the perfect opening for misinformation to spread. And then, right on cue, this picture pops up online. And it shows the Carlisle Bridge, a really important railway bridge, looking like it had suffered catastrophic damage. Coming right after an earthquake, you can see how it looked frighteningly believable. Turns out the image was suspected to be AI-generated. And this is where things get really interesting. In a pretty wild twist, technology was both the problem and the solution. A BBC journalist actually used an AI chatbot to analyze the picture, and the bot helped pinpoint the exact spots that had likely been faked. And this just shows you the total disconnect. On one side, you have the digital fiction, a crumbling, dangerous-looking bridge. On the other side, you have the physical reality, a perfectly fine, totally safe bridge, confirmed by inspectors who had to be scrambled out there in the middle of the night. That gap between what was seen online and what was actually real, that's where all the chaos happened. So, with this potentially disastrous image going viral, how did the authorities react? Well, this digital threat triggered a very real, very fast emergency response. They were truly racing against the clock. And the response was incredibly quick. I mean, look at this. At 12:30 a.m., Network Rail gets the heads up. Just 5 minutes later, they stop everything. All trains, halted. Nothing crosses that bridge. For the next hour and a half, teams are physically on site, checking every inch of that structure until they could finally give the all clear. The whole incident, from the first warning to reopening the line, took just 90 minutes. And you've got to understand, they really had no choice. As this quote from Network Rail makes crystal clear, their number one rule is safety first, always. So in that moment, they had to treat that digital image as a real, credible threat until they could prove it wasn't. You just don't take chances when people's lives are on the line. Now, even though the bridge was totally fine and the shutdown was pretty short, that 90-minute pause had real cascading consequences. This digital fake created a very real ripple effect that spread across the physical railway system. The impact was pretty significant. We're talking 32 services delayed with knock-on effects that were felt all the way up in Scotland. It created a totally unnecessary cost for the taxpayer, piled a ton of extra work onto frontline teams in the dead of night, and it pulled inspection crews away from their scheduled maintenance, which could affect projects for days to come. Okay, but there was one saving grace here. A railway expert pointed out that because this all happened so late at night, the trains that were most affected were freight and sleeper services. So thankfully, very few everyday commuters were actually caught up in the delays. It was a lucky break, really, that the timing kept the disruption for the general public to a minimum. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, this single incident is a huge warning sign. It's a powerful cautionary tale about a new kind of weakness we have in a world where our digital and physical lives are so mixed together. And Network Rail, they're not mincing their words. Their message is clear. This isn't some harmless prank. These kinds of hoaxes have real, measurable costs in wasted time, in wasted money, and in resources that get thrown at a problem that doesn't even exist. And this quote from an expert really brings home the human side of it all. To the person who made the image, maybe it felt like a game. But a delay is never just a number on a screen. It could mean someone misses a flight, a critical hospital appointment, or even a family funeral. The impact on real people can be absolutely devastating. And that leaves us with this final, really critical question. This was just one image. But as these AI tools get more powerful and easier for anyone to use, creating convincing fakes of anything, from infrastructure damage to fake emergency announcements, is going to become incredibly simple. So, how do we as a society prepare for that? How do we build systems and even train ourselves to spot the difference between what's real and what's not? How do we keep the digital world from stopping the real one?